If you're reducing the rigor, then your plan is incorrect, where every student can learn anything that you put in front of them.
That's today's guest, music educator and accommodations specialist Cortez Daniel, sharing how rigor and accessibility can and must coexist in our classrooms. Welcome to Music Ed Insights. I'm leadership trainer and former band director Alan Fire, here with composer and co-college music education program head Steve Shanley.
Each episode, Alan and I talk with national thought leaders in music education with practical insights for K-12 music educators.
Steve, tell us about our guest.
Cortez Daniel began his musical journey in Riverdale, Georgia. He earned a bachelor's degree in music education and went on to teach in Iowa and Colorado before returning to Georgia in Athens, where he currently teaches at Stroud Elementary School, leads music at a local synagogue, and runs the Tones Collective, a dynamic music organization specializing in live performance, music education, and composition. Find Cortez's full bio, show notes, and resources at musicedinsights.com. Alan, what was the takeaway you had from this episode?
I was really struck by Cortez's insistence that accommodations should never mean dumbing it down. His story about that nonverbal piano student and how the question wasn't if the student could learn, but at what pace and through which modalities. It completely reframed how I can think about rigor, access, and dignity in the music classroom. How about you?
Well, I love how Cortez uses AI as an inclusion tool. He talks about translating lesson materials into students' home languages, creating visual supports for students who have difficulty reading, and some other great ideas.
Yeah, and his caution about learned helplessness, that impulse we have to just give students the answer or do the steps for them, that hit home. Insiders get ad-free episodes. Learn more at our website. But for now, let's get to Cortez Daniel.
Cortez Daniel, welcome to the program.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
So you've said you consider yourself a specialist working with students who need accommodations. What are some general things you see teachers getting wrong in terms of working with students who need accommodations?
I find that a lot of my peers treat accommodations as ways to make the subject easier or dumb it down, if you will, where I don't think that getting rid of the rigor is the goal at all. If you're reducing the rigor, then your plan is incorrect, where every student can learn anything that you put in front of them. I actually teach private piano lessons, and I had a nonverbal student who was several grade levels below his level of reasoning for his age. And his grandmother was very hesitant that he would be able to learn the piano. And within 2 weeks, I was able to show her that it's not about can he learn the piano? It's at what pace is he going to be learning the piano? And how can we make this information more accessible to him? So I can't explain things with too many words. Short sentences need to be the goal for a student like that. Or instead of showing him on paper how the black notes look, he's going to be more of a physical, touching learner. So he needs to touch the piano. And I take that same attitude to the classroom.
And I probably should have worded the question a little bit differently in that I know that the teachers have their hearts in the right place. In general, when they're getting things wrong, it's not because they're ignoring or they don't think something is important. Their heart's in the right place, and I think they're doing exactly what you just mentioned, that they want to make it work, and they think the solution is, well, let's dumb it down or let's make it easier instead of maybe just approaching it in a different manner or at a different pace. Have you noticed any other kind of common misconceptions or things that we might think are coming from a place of good intentions, but you might caution against?
One accommodation that I think comes from a good place is the idea of just giving them the answer or just taking things that they need help with. For example, the small things. How do I log onto my computer? How do I go to this website? How do I do this? At times we want to help them, so we often just reach over and do things or lead through it and have them watch. At least I see this a lot at my school where students get this learned helplessness because they know that if they ask from the beginning, we're going to help them. We want to help them. I challenge my students to watch me do things if they need to, and then I exit out of everything or erase everything and have them re-walk me through the steps as a way of accommodation to teach them things. Or I would even have students walk me through the process of figuring out a question with their own questions. Like if they ask me questions, I'll say, you know what, that's a fantastic way to think about it. Can we talk about it in a different way? Maybe let's talk about if you can't get this question with pennies, let's talk about oranges, or let's talk about something more realistic, something that actually matters to the student. I find that oftentimes if I'm confusing them talking about music, I can make a sports reference and the kids will immediately get this topic that seemed otherworldly or ethereal to them. It automatically makes sense.
That's great. Let's continue with that and get real practical for some of the K-12 music teachers who are listening. So, when you're working with a student who needs accommodations, and that could be sensory, attention, physical disability, anything, what are a couple of very specific things that you could do in a band, a choir, or orchestra classroom that would work for our listeners?
I highly recommend using every resource that's out there, especially technology nowadays. I've gotten in the habit of having all of my students' accommodations that they have listed down with no identifying information. And just as I write my lesson plan, I'll bring it to AI at some point and say, hey, I've got all these students who have English learning things. I have blind students. I have students who have dyslexia, people who have difficulty reading these things. And I ask it, can you help me to consider every extension that I may need for those who are performing as well as every support that I'm going to need for students who are underperforming at the moment. And the things that it'll kind of help you with, like, I don't know much Spanish, but I can now teach my music lesson the same way that it's written by having AI go back and put these things into Spanish sentences that I can bring back to my students. And that can work with any language.
What are some other ways AI has helped you with that? At first, I was thinking, okay, what could it possibly do? And then you mentioned the language, and I think, oh, well, yeah, but that hadn't even occurred to me. What are some other things that might surprise listeners that AI could help them with?
So, a big thing that happens in my school is behavioral issues. The majority of our school has, they just get in trouble very often. They have traumatic backgrounds, so they might be more violent towards things. And I sometimes find myself at a loss where I'm like, how do I make a lesson where I can get through something that might take more time to talk through, or I need the students to be able to sit in small groups and work things out when I know that this is going to happen? So I will bring to AI, like, I have a student who loves to talk, or I have a student who is going to ask me 10 questions after this one thing that I'm going to ask. Do you have any recommendations for me in order to help keep them on cue? I can tell them I have a lot of visual learners. I teach kindergartners. They can't read very well, so they need something to be able to look at that will be entertaining to them. And sometimes AI, I'll even have it create little animations with things that I'm showing. If I'm showing patterns, I can make it create a visual representation of the patterns that I'm talking about, and I can have the patterns move if I just tell ChatGPT to create this image and make the patterns move when I click it to go to whatever pattern I would like from there. I just use it if I'm curious of anything. It gives me recommendations of like proximity. Or even recently, this within the last year, I had this question where I was having trouble getting to a parent and finding out what they really truly cared about with their student. And I didn't know how to word that. I didn't know what the best way to go about the question would be. So I went to ChatGPT and I said, I want to make it clear that my intention is this, and I want to help with the student. My intention is to make sure this student can succeed in life. They don't have to be the best musician in the world, but they can go out and know how they learn. How can I express this to this parent? And it told me that a better way to go about it would be to ask the parent, what are your goals for your student? And that blew my mind. I had never sat down and asked a parent, where do you see this kid in 10 years, 5 years? And you hear so many different responses from there that bring you to the next level of where you can actually work together as a community because you can work towards the same goal. But I never would have thought of that unless I brought the question to ChatGPT and had this robot hold my hand through it.
One of the things that's striking me is so far, I have not heard you reference any of these situations in a way that makes it seem like a drag or a challenge or something that's
Yeah.
preventing you from accomplishing what you want to accomplish. So I'm just going to word this perhaps too bluntly, but I'm going to do so because I'd like to hear your response. Do you ever go to school or start the school day or start a class period and think, boy, what could I accomplish if I didn't have to worry about all of these accommodations? I'm doing so many great things. Imagine what I could do if I didn't need to also address these other challenges.
I think that's a really great question. I am lucky in the fact that I do carry what I call relentless positivity, to where I can't help but when I'm in a music classroom, when I've got students around me who really want to try, I just get excited no matter how tired or frustrated I am with the day. I get this burst of energy that helps me to ignore that feeling. Like I will forget that I'm tired for an hour and a half as I'm teaching through a rehearsal, and then afterwards I'm pooped. And I consider things then, like I guess I don't really consider even what it would be like without these issues, because I guess in my mind everyone's got issues. That sounds crazy, I bet, but everyone has
Now you're talking to
issues.
two guys who
No.
have issues. It's all good.
Yeah, we preach into the choir.
In that way, I just think of it as like, if I can't get you to learn the thing that my standard is to learn, what can I do to get you there? That's my job. My job isn't for it to be easy to teach you. My job isn't for you to be the most receptive student or to be able to read at your grade level all the time and not have bad days and not be hungry sometimes and just always be at that homeostasis. My job is to help you even when you're not there, so that one day when you're an adult and these problems persist, you know how your body works, you know how your mind works, and you have these alternative tools that'll help you. I think part of me doesn't even consider the fact that I'm teaching music, because with all of these accommodations that are required, I find myself really teaching my students more about themselves, how to find out how you think, how to find out how to get information. Like, I love when they ask me a question that I don't know the answer to, because I'll say, you know what we should do? Let's look it up. Let's do this together. Because everyone is different. I don't ever find myself dreaming of some world where like I didn't have to do it, because it's just always been that way. Even since my own childhood. I grew up like an hour away from where I am now, in Riverdale, Georgia. And if you want to see a rough classroom, if you want to see a rough student, that was me. I am lucky that I had the right teachers who didn't give up on me, the teachers who assured me that, like, no matter who you are, you're worthy of love and you're worthy of patience, because that being instilled in me at such a young age, I feel like really helps me when I'm dealing with students who I know are going to tell lies about everything. I can think to myself, well, I don't know why this kid's lying. Like, he might get in trouble at home if he tells the truth about things. He might be doing this as a safety procedure for himself. Let me just meet him where he's at. Let me tell him that this can't be going on. Like, I know what's going on. I'm not going to make you feel bad about it, but I want to help you fix this. And we can find ways to work on that. Yeah, we're working on music, but we're also working on your humanhood, your personhood.
Hmm.
Remind me, how many years have you been teaching, please?
This is my ninth year.
All right, what's changed in the last 9 years about today's kids versus, say, 2016, 17, pre-pandemic kids?
I think that if you're not exciting, they will not ignore you, but almost blank you out. Before COVID, I could kind of do a lecture and I could sit in one place and I would be able to talk students through these things. And pretty much they were already set to where like they knew lecture means listen, take notes. Nowadays, if I'm being boring, my students will raise their hands and say the most off the wall things, things that I don't hear any teachers talking about from the past. I remember my first year at this school, I had a student raise her hand in the middle of me talking about Black History Month. And she says, do you talk this much at home?
Oh
And
my
I thought to myself,
gosh.
yes, my wife feels that way. Yes, I do talk this much. But instead of getting angry or frustrated, which, like something like that will catch you off guard, I did have a moment of pause. And I thought, I felt right back to a reactive mindset, because I was just getting to know the kids of like, I have to react to this. But as I realized what she was really saying, I realized that I had to bring the excitement to the classroom that I want them to bring. I can't expect them to give me a positive smile and be gung ho about music if I'm sitting there pouting, or if I'm tired that day, so I'm not moving around the room, or if I didn't do my homework and I didn't bring things for them to latch on to. My energy, my excitement has become my greatest tool over the last 4 to 5 years because even in private programs, students quit like that. The parents aren't making them do outside activities. If you can't reach that kid and make them interested in the program that you're offering and tell them why it's a great program for them and what it'll do for their minds, they don't feel obligated to sign up just because they're curious or because it might be something they like. You've got to be exciting. It's all about that attention grabbing, getting as much information into the children as you can in a short amount of time. And if that means that I only get 5 minutes to teach you about the quarter note today, and I got to spend 20 minutes playing a silly game about charades, showing your facial expressions and gestures, being able to read body language, then I'll do that. I'll use that 20 minutes for that activity if I can get you to sit down and focus.
There are some people for whom that doesn't come quite as naturally. They might be a little bit more introverted. They might be a little bit more serious, but they are also capable of being exciting and grabbing attention. What pointers do you have for somebody who might say, oh man, I cannot be relentlessly positive like that, but I do care about keeping everybody's attention?
I think that you truly show yourself when you talk about what you're passionate about. Students will actually see you when you like light up, even if it's calmly sitting down, but when they can tell your tone of voice changed when you were talking about history or when you were talking about airplanes, they kind of get to see that different part of you that you don't necessarily jump to in the classroom. I try to find sharing the things that you care about with the students, sharing the things that you're an expert in with the students helps to give them that connection, that relationship where they feel like they know you more. And that does just as much, if not more, than the outwardly bubbly person. It's really funny that you mentioned other people not having it because my business partner, Brian Jones, he is the like complete opposite of me. We'll walk into a rehearsal room, he's quiet, calm. He goes to the piano and he's ready to accompany. Where I'm jumping, I'm getting everyone ready to go. And you get to see as the rehearsal goes on, there's a group of kids who might need what I'm putting out that day. But there's a group of kids who needs what he's putting out. That calm, that stability, that care, but a different kind of care. And he's got his own crew over there who just need that. I find that as long as you're sharing what you care about and also asking what the kids care about, you get to see that same part of them when they get to share that. And they don't, in science class, they're not expecting the teacher to ask about like what animes are you reading or mangas are you reading? What shows are you into right now? What do you care about? What do you care about? And once you get there, once they feel like you care, then they'll start buying in more. Then they can actually get to that point of feeling safety knowing they're in a room where they're cared for, where they can catch the attention, and they almost pay attention just because they respect you more, or just because they want to offer you that courtesy of like, hey, I like this guy, I like this girl or woman. I love the way that they share how they what they care about. I know that they have a family at home that they care about. I know that they love their dog. I'm going to sit down and listen because I don't want to be rude. I don't want to make their day harder. And kids will even relate on that level. I don't know how many times maybe any of the listeners have sat down and told the kids how they feel and seen how even that changes the classroom.
Let's shift over to families for a bit. You've got your children's choir and some other activities that probably put you in pretty close proximity with families. What have you learned about working with parents that school music teachers might not see right away or see as clearly?
I think at the beginning of my career, when I was at Sigourney High School out in Iowa, I kind of had this idea of all the red tape that there was to do any collaborations with parents. And I didn't necessarily see all of the gifts that were being available to me because I didn't really get to like there were the parents where it's like, they well, I guess too, there's small town drama that would go on, like families were invested in different things. They had their own opinions that they were like historically on about because of last teachers or prior experiences they've had. So in a way, like this is gonna sound bad, but I think I was almost taught to see families as yes, they're a part of the community, but at times we butt heads. Like they might be against this, okay, you just gotta deal with it. You might be for this or that, you just do it. But as I've gotten more into the private sector, especially with Evergreen Children's Chorale, where you don't have like 50 high school kids who can just build the set. You don't have a bunch of art students who can do these things. You start to just like have less around you to even just talk with the parents. I remember my first time just saying, hey, this is a lot of work. I'm a really creative person. I have the ideas, but I'm not an artist. And I find this parent designs sets for Marvel. What? How did we not know that? How has nobody used this resource? Because nobody asked. Nobody asked the parents what they cared about. No one asked what they did or if they would be willing to help. And then I opened my mind to like, you know what? Let me find out what this person cares about. Let me just say to everyone, I don't know what you like to do. I don't know what you can offer. But if you want to donate some of your time or donate some of your money, some of your expertise, we're open to it. Please just come and talk with them. You talk with them, you find out what they like, what they want to do, and they can help build your program because they are the program. They're providing these kids who they have dreams for, who they have goals for, and they want to be a part of that. And then the parents also see what's going on. I just think that they should be a part of the classroom because they have so many more gifts than what I could even offer.
I love this theme today of just ask them. Ask the students, what do you want to learn? What can I do
Yeah.
to help you learn it? Ask the parents, what
Hmm.
experience do you want the students to have? What experience do you want to have with your students learning? What would you like that to look like? And I think that when we start teaching and when we're taught how to teach, and then when we're even very far in our career to the point where we might consider ourselves veterans or experts, that just doesn't come naturally. Our job is to be there helping them learn this thing that we know. And so it's counterintuitive at every step for so many of us to just ask, what do you want? What do you think? How can you help?
It's vulnerable. You have to be vulnerable to do it.
What cool things have you been up to recently? What do you want our listeners to know?
I am a co-founder of Tones Collective LLC. It's a business that me and four friends created in Colorado, but now it's become two people, me and my co-founder Brian Jones. And we use our business as a way to keep people our age engaged with music in ways that they may be missing. Like how many people we know who are in fine arts programs who grew up and they don't touch their instrument anymore. So we invite these people to jam sessions. We organize events in Atlanta and Riverdale where we can go and do live open mics or just have people come and perform with us. We do themes for everything, like of course, Halloween, Christmas. This month we're doing a 2016 themed karaoke and live band performance. That stuff just really gets me excited. I love being steeped in my craft by performing music because it just keeps me in the know. I feel like even more confident with what I'm teaching because I'm literally doing it on Wednesday nights in these different locations.
Very cool. Well, thank you for joining us today, Cortez. Can we close things down now with the lightning round?
Ooh, yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
All right. What's the best restaurant in Athens, Georgia?
Ooh, La Lagunas Express. It's one of my students' parents' places. It's a beautiful, amazing Mexican restaurant. Best nachos in town.
All right. How about a musical artist or a group or even just a song that you want more people to know about?
Coming from my time in Iowa, I would say I wish more people around the Midwest, especially, knew more about Luther Vandross. I am so happy that he got a Netflix documentary recently, and people have been really getting more into his music. But what a performer! What an artist! I want people to get into that sultry baritone R&B vibe more.
How about a favorite film or TV series you've enjoyed recently?
The One Piece is real. I love One Piece. It is my favorite show. They have more than 1,000 episodes right now, and I've been caught up for like the last 300, 400 episodes. It is an epic tale. If you want to try something and you like to watch things in the background, even, it's a great show.
What platform is that?
It's on Crunchyroll. It's an anime. I love anime. I'm an anime nerd.
All right. Very cool. How about the most memorable musical performance or concert you've attended?
One of the most memorable concerts I attended was actually a bunch of little kids out in the mountains. They did Moana, And I remembered seeing the kids work together to be the crab. Because I thought to myself, how are they going to be this big crab? They just had like 15 kids as one arm and 15 kids as the other. And they had to work together to move back and forth and make things look cool. And I cried at that performance, seeing their teamwork. It was my first time ever like shedding a tear for that performance. It really means a lot to me to see those kids work so hard.
I love it. And finally, a book recommendation, please, for our listeners.
If you are at all into jazz, I would highly recommend A Chromatic Approach to Jazz Harmony and Melody. It's by David Liebman. And it's really a bit of an exercise book. I love those kinds of books that don't just read at you, like tell you things. They have exercises or things for you to practice. And they have so many ways for you to learn to get around the keyboard and even sing melodies around these very popular patterns. I highly recommend it for my jazzers especially. It'll unlock a new level of playing in your mind.
Cortez Daniel, your relentless positivity has brought some joy to us and to our listeners. Some really practical ideas and some inspiring ideas. It's been a fun conversation. Thank you so much for joining us at Music Ed Insights today. It's been awesome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for listening to Music Ed Insights.
We're supported by Group Dynamic, a leading provider of youth leadership workshops. Alan works with dozens of schools each year to help develop their leaders. Learn more at groupdynamicyouth.com.
Or you could email me at alan@groupdynamic.net. Also sponsored by the Co-College Music Education Program. They've got a website too.
Just click their link at our website or email me at sshanley@coe.edu.
Also, The Normal Design, helping normal companies and people create memorable, meaningful, and professional designs and branding. More at thenormaldesign.com.
And Winterset Websites, website design and maintenance. wintersetwebsites.com.
Our Facebook page is Music Ed Insights.
Our website has program notes, links, and a one-page download of this episode's key takeaways. That's on musicedinsights.com.
You can expect a new episode most Mondays during the school year.
Get current.
Stay relevant.
Music Ed Insights.